Hi, everyone. My name is Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. In today's episode, we're speaking with Chef Ann Cooper, also known as the Renegade Lunch Lady. Ann is an internationally recognized author, educator, public speaker, and advocate for healthy food for all children. She was honored by the National Resources Defense Council, selected as a Kellogg Food and Society Policy Fellow, and awarded an honorary doctorate from SUNY Cobleskill for her work on sustainable agriculture. As the Director of Nutrition Services for the Boulder Valley School District, she launched the widely praised School Food Project, which replaced highly processed lunches and with healthy scratch-cooked meals. Although she has since retired and continues to focus on working through the Chef Ann Foundation and Lunch Lessons, LLC, to develop solutions to the school food crisis and help change children's relationship to food. Join us today as we chat with Chef Ann about her passion for fixing the school food crisis, how chefs can make a difference, and her vision for the future of children's nutrition. And there she is. Good morning. I'm exhausted after that intro, Chef. My goodness, there's a lot there. How are you?
I'm great, and thanks for having me here with you today.
Absolutely. We're honored to have you. I know that you're kind of taking it easy. You're over in the western side of Colorado, but I'm always going to consider you a Boulderite for all the great work that you did. And on a personal note, I have little ones that are going into fourth grade and into seventh grade. And because of so much work that you and your team has done over the years, we feel somewhat safe and happy and relieved that when they go to school, they'll have a good meal that's not filled with lots of processed. I was watching one of your morning shows in Denver where you had a food processor sitting up on the table. And you had all these all these cans or jars filled with all these, I don't even know what they were, from salt to preservatives, just pouring it in to just emphasize how much stuff, and unfortunately bad stuff, goes in or had gone into our kids' lunches. It's just terrible, right?
Yeah, it's, there certainly school food pre-COVID has gotten much better. Boulder does an extraordinary job, but there are a lot of schools where kids don't get healthy food, and that's just a travesty.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I have so many questions. But before we go there, when you look at your body of work and your resume, there are several parts that are enough for most people's careers, right? So we're going to go back a few years because you're professionally trained. You went to the Culinary Institute of America, and there was some stuff even before the Putney Inn. The Putney Inn, this beautiful little inn in Vermont, right? You were there for a decade. Again, that's a career for many people, and then. I'd love to hear about where you were, because this is so interesting to our students, right? Like what your journey process was, where you were, where you are, where you think you're going. But the Putney Inn Telluride Film Festival here in beautiful Colorado for a period of time. Can you rewind the clock just a little bit? You're finishing up culinary school. Did you always want to go to culinary school? Did you know exactly what you wanted to do, and then maybe weave how you were going to save the world, and how that fell into it as well? No pressure, zero pressure.
So I want to go back even a little further. So no, I didn't always know that I wanted to do anything, like many young people.
Yeah.
So I was kind of a bad child in the late 60s and early 70s. And I never actually graduated high school. I got thrown out for doing things that you might not get thrown out for at this point. But
so you were really bad. You were bad. Chef Ann was bad. Okay.
I was smoking pot, and but not really bad, but bad enough to get thrown out of high school a few times. To the point where I just gave up. And I decided my avocation was going to be ski bum. That's how I got out to Colorado. I hitchhiked. This was in 1972. I decided my avocation was ski bum, and I hitchhiked out to Telluride, Colorado. And I got here and I called home for money. And my parents basically said, what? All right, you got thrown out of high school. You just hitchhiked cross country and now you want money? No, figure it out. Absolutely, rightfully so.
Yeah.
So I had never had a job. I'd never cooked. I didn't realize that ski bum wasn't an avocation. So I had to get a job. And I heard there was a job being an assistant breakfast cook at a restaurant. And I said, well, I'm sure I could do that. I talked my way into an assistant breakfast cook position and in Telluride, and I just found my home in food. I went from that job with the same owner who owned numerous restaurants to become a lunch cook and a dinner cook and a pastry cook. And I just fell in love with it. I mean, I was dyslexic and had ADD and ADHD and didn't learn like other kids, but all of a sudden I found a home in food. And I often say it saved my life. So that was in Telluride. And I started working with the festivals. I got a job with the ski resort and I started doing big catering. And so I catered parties of up to 20,000 with the film festival and backstage for the Grateful Dead. So, and backstage for the Grateful Dead could be its own podcast, but let's just say that it was
indeed,
crazy. And I worked the Telluride Film Festival, the Bluegrass Festival, the Mushroom Festival, and the Mushroom Festival at that point was all your dreams about a mushroom festival and Mountain Film Festival.
Yeah, yeah.
So I did all of that, and then I broke both my legs, one after the other, one hang gliding, one skiing. And I decided that maybe ski bum wasn't a vocation. And I decided I wanted to go to culinary school. And so now we're at 1979, and I applied to CIA, was immediately rejected because I didn't have a high school diploma. So then I went, got my GED, got into the Culinary Institute. And then I was very, very good at culinary, but it was a very male-dominated school at that point. There were no female culinary instructors. But because I was doing very well in the school, I should be able to get interviews at any company. And Holland America Cruise Line came on campus, and they wouldn't interview me because I was a female. They didn't hire women. And I went to the president of the school and said, okay, they shouldn't be here at all. And the school backed me up. I eventually got a position as a cook, not a chef, a cook. Upon graduation from CIA, I went out as a cook, chef de cuisine, a chef de partie, and I spent 2 years going around the world. And I learned food in every country from the chefs that were there. But I was really classically trained by men. And then eventually, after I got off of the cruise ships and really knew at that point that food was my life, I came to Colorado, back to Colorado. And at one point I went back to Telluride and I ran all the food service there. And then I came to Grand Junction, got my first executive chef position when I was in my 20s. And then it just went on from there, but very, very white tablecloth. And in 1990, I went to the Putney Inn that you've talked about.
Yeah.
And when I got to the Putney Inn, I really started thinking about local food. And that's sort of how I got to where I am today. I started thinking about local food. There was an event where one chef from every state that was into sustainable local food. And this was, before farm to table was even a thing. We all got invited to cook at the White House. So I did that. And I was at the Putney Inn, but everything was white tablecloth. I wrote some books. And I started getting really known for farm to table, before that was a word, and really sustainable food. And in 1999, I got a call from the Ross School in East Hampton, New York, that asked me to come and take over that build their program. And I literally looked at the phone and said, "What? Me, lunch lady? No way." And they called back and they said, "Come and see. Come and meet the founder, Courtney Ross. Come and see what we're doing." So eventually, in 1999, I dropped out of the white tablecloth sort of celebrity chef thing and became a lunch lady. And that's when I was also nicknamed the Renegade Lunch Lady, because I was being interviewed by the New York Times, and I said, "No, I'm done being a fancy white tablecloth chef. I'm going to be a lunch lady." And they said, "If you're a lunch lady, it's the Renegade Lunch Lady." And that's how it all began.
No, I absolutely love the story, and so many parallels. So you said 72, you got to Colorado as a ski mom. I got here in 73. You were in Telluride. I was in Crested Butte. And the same thing, trying to find my way. Did you find back then, and we had a restaurant in the Gunnison Crested Butte area. Did you find back then, Chef, that there were some sort of local things happening? Like, were you sourcing some of your products from local farmers back then? I know we were trying to do that in the Crested Butte area, but it was more related to developing relationships with beef growers, right? I really couldn't. There were no farmers markets. Crested Butte did some cool things, but what about Telluride? What was the vibe like around food back then in the 70s? Were you able to source some local stuff?
We really weren't sourcing much local. As the film festival went on, we started really doing it. But in the beginning, there wasn't really anything. Telluride was so far away from, where food was grown, really. There were some ranchers there, and there were certainly animal ranchers, beef ranchers, but, it was really so small. There weren't any farmers markets. But as the years went on with the film festival, we were able to pre-order and source. Like the year before, we would, call the farmers and say, "This is what we're going to need. We're going to need it in August. Here's what it is." We would send trucks to Grand Junction to pick up food, over to Palisade. And so we were able to really do local stuff, but it was a number of years in.
Yeah, that's great feedback. And it's interesting how it started to begin. And then, and for me, just as a sidebar, it started almost subtly. Like, so I mentioned the ranchers, but then, I had some folks that grew some herbs, and I didn't go to them. They sort of came to me. Back then, people would come to the back door. So you'd have the guy, yes. The guy was foraging some mushrooms, and, then I had somebody would show up with trout, and then I'd be like, should I put that on the menu? Shouldn't that come off of a truck? I mean, we all had to learn. Should I have my guests sign a disclosure that this fish actually came out of the river, at 8:00 this morning? So yeah, it was a lot of learning. So then the Renegade Lunch Lady, I just love this story. So again, 99, long before people were even thinking about this. Can you talk about your time then at the Ross School, and what did that when did this become like, oh my gosh, this is not only a passion. I don't only dig this, I need to fix this. When did that happen? Yes. There? Yeah. Take us through that.
So first of all, the Ross School was nothing like a regular school district. It was founded by Courtney Ross, whose deceased husband was Stephen Ross, who made Time Warner. She became one of the richest people in the world, and she decided she wanted to change education through 5 pillars. One of the pillars was healthy eating and wellness. And we didn't have a food budget. We were spending about $15 a day to feed kids, and in a regular school, it's 5. So, and we had all these chefs. I had 13 chefs working, and we were doing this restaurant quality food. We were also doing events and catering for Mrs. Ross. And so we did parties for like Quincy Jones and Barbara Streisand, and there was all of these big events. So it was very high profile. East Hampton is high profile, right outside of the city. But people started hearing about what we were doing because there were numerous articles about it. And Alice Waters came out from California to check it out. Yeah. So, and the New York City schools came to see what we were doing. And so all of a sudden it was like, wow, we can change how kids eat all across the country. And that's what we started to do. So it was very exciting. And I realized that I really had given up the sort of chef, the white tablecloth chef thing. And all I was going to do now was school food. And that was it.
But coming back to that, you've mentioned, I mean, you were a classically trained chef, and then you traveled to hone your craft, if you will. So in your mind, were you thinking back then, rather than opening boxes and throwing them on a sheet pan and putting them in the oven, I can apply techniques, classical techniques, basic techniques, foundational techniques to whole foods and make a difference? Is that where you started going?
Yeah, I had this background in very big food operations, again, catering for 20,000. So I knew how to do really good classical food. I knew how to do it in a really big way. I knew how to scratch cook. I knew how to run a budget. And I figured all of that together could make a difference. Now at the Ross School, because we kind of had an unlimited budget, I really could grow this idea that you could feed kids really good food and they'd eat it, that you could have a garden and kids would grow it and eat it, that you could buy most of your food from local farmers. And so that's how it started. And then when Alice came and saw this, she said, you have to come out to Berkeley. So after 5 years in New York, I went out to Berkeley and started working at the Chez Panisse Foundation, and eventually became the director of nutrition services for the Berkeley Unified School District. And that was my first entree to school food, real school food with a small budget and all the paperwork and all the USDA criteria. And so that was a rude awakening.
But what an amazing experience. Ann Cooper and Alice Waters together. Wow. Wow. So let me make you blush, right? So as we said earlier, I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy for the work and the fact that my young children reap the benefits of your hard work. The impact, Chef, that you've made on, and let's just be personal, the Boulder Valley School District is impeccable, right? You hear Annie Cooper, you don't hear Chef Ann Cooper, you hear Annie Cooper. And I'm a Boulderite now, relocated from Chicago several years ago. My family, my extended family, has been in Colorado since the 70s. I'm a chef, educator, husband, father. It's so important in our home and many homes to make sure that our children have access to healthy food options and that they're aware of what's available to them, because in so many parts of the country, our kids are just not aware. I would say that we're very grateful. Boulder is very unique in that way, and many cities across the country are. And you made sure that our collective ethos, I'll say, in this city, of encouraging sustainable food production practices, equitable access to healthy food, and creating this strong food system was implemented in our schools. So I could just say that, and it's really easy to write it, but OMG, that's a lot of work. So when you first started, and it costs money and it takes time and it's training, it's not as easy as just saying, so it shall be, right? So when I get really excited about this because you're working with children that help me then ultimately work with young adult learners, right? Who then come to culinary school and they're, hey, Chef Bachman, when are we going to the farm? Hey, Chef Bachman, when are we going to the farmer's market? Because they are more educated today. So when you started, Chef, working with school districts, what were some of the major challenges, and I could just imagine, that you had to overcome?
Well, when I started in both Berkeley and Boulder, but I'll focus my comments on Boulder, but when I started in both, they were serving almost exclusively highly processed packaged food. So we took Boulder from that really bad food and Berkeley, home of Alice Waters, from that really bad food to scratch cooking. And like you said, it's not magic. I don't know. It's not like Tinkerbell, boom, here, it's going to be great. There was a tremendous amount of pushback. When I took out chocolate milk, I mean, I got death threats, literally. When I stopped serving dessert every day at the board meeting where it was announced that we weren't going to have desserts every day, all kinds of press was there. All the trucks with with their big things were there saying I was a cupcake Nazi. I mean, it was crazy. And pushback from the staff in the beginning, because we said we're going to serve raw chicken. And they thought, well, you're going to poison everyone. It's like, what? You don't cook chicken from raw at home? What are you talking about? Of course we can. But it was a long, long process. And so, I was there for 12 years, but the first 2 or 3 were hell. I mean, I was working almost 24/7. I had a number of chef consultants come in to help us. We had to retrain the whole staff. We had to redo the org chart. We had to redo the budgets. We had to redo all of the human resources, job descriptions, everything. I mean, it's not easy. And they were cooking all over the place. So then we went from cooking in 32 kitchens, which is not efficient and doesn't produce the consistent product, down to 5, then to 3. And then last year, down to 1 right before I left when we opened the Culinary Center. So we have, and the food just kept getting better and better and better, more local and local and local. When I came to Boulder, they were spending about $7,500 a year on produce for 30,000 kids. When I left, it was about $750,000. When I came to Boulder, nothing was purchased locally. When I left, 20% of all food was sourced regionally. So it's a tremendous amount of work. I was honored and fortunate to work with an amazing team. All of my district managers and executive chef were just really incredible. The staff on basically the front lines in the schools working with the kids were so passionate and so good. Not all of them. There was a lot of pushback in the beginning from everybody, from the kids, from their parents, from the employees, from the administration. But, we got through it all. And, you see the program as it is today. It's really remarkable.
Just to emphasize the point of where you've come, 32 spaces down to 5, and now you have the beautiful facility on Arapahoe there. How many meals are being prepared in that facility on a daily basis during school?
Yeah, so they're doing here's my guess, because I don't have the exact numbers of what they were doing as last year ended. But between breakfast, lunch, snack, dinners, whatever, I would say about 20,000 meals a day.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's again, another career, another chapter in another book, right? Just and we've been working a little bit here at the school with Steve, and I'm not sure if he's still there. He was really
he is
thoughtful through the pandemic and all of that. And we'll continue to work with him. What do you, Chef, and not to put you on the spot, what do you think is missing or was missing? Maybe it's not missing anymore, definitely our conversation is robust, but what's missing in our thinking, and I'm talking society, about how we feed and nurture our kids? Is it different in different parts of the world? And as far as you're concerned, are Europeans more concerned? Are we catching up? Are we ahead of them? Are we leading the way now?
We're certainly not leading the way. I think it is different in different parts of the world. And I think it goes back to this idea of food culture. When you look at the French or Italians, Asians, they have a deep-rooted food culture. Mm-hmm. They've always had family meals. They weren't, into fast food like Americans have been. And those countries, they make such a point of sitting down at family meals and eating real food and not going out to fast food and having multi-generations sitting at a table and embracing multi-generational living and dining. And you see that in their school food, like in a lot of France and a lot of Italy, they have 3-course lunches. Lunch times are an hour and a half. A lot of places kids go home for an hour and a half. That's just not how America has fed its kids. One out of every 4 meals is eaten in fast food in America. It's just, it's mind-boggling that that's the case. And 1 out of every 4 meals is eaten in a car. 1 out of every 4 meals in front of a blue screen. So what's left? How are we teaching our kids about food and the importance? And there's very little food education in schools. I think that we need that. We need to have food literacy in every grade level, grade appropriate, to teach them about, food and where it comes from and, how it should taste and how it interacts with the body and, the interaction between the planet and farmers and farming and climate change and health, all of that. We don't teach that. We teach things that we may never use again, but we don't teach food literacy and we need to.
Really well said. And you are making a difference. I want to try to connect the dots too and make sure that I have all of the different impacts that you've had clear here. So you built a team that launched the School Food Project, which was revolutionary in overhauling not only the food served for school lunches, but as you just mentioned, how students think about food. So can you give us a few thoughts on the School Food Project? And boy, what did it take to make that happen? Working with local farms, financial challenges, COVID out of nowhere. I'm pretty certain you worked with Michelle Obama's Let's Move initiative as well a few years ago, as it relates to salad bars in schools, so on and so forth. So can you talk a little bit about that specific project, the School Food Project, and where that sits today?
Yeah, so 2 different things: School Food Project, Chef Ann Foundation. But the School Food Project was really built with this idea that if you're going to remake school food, you also need, and you're going to need outside funding. We needed a way to fundraise that wasn't so Boulder Valley School District in your face. We needed another face to the school food. Mm-hmm. We needed a marketing campaign around school food. We needed to market to the kids and the parents. And that's how the School Food Project was born. And we were very fortunate in the early years. We raised a couple $1 million to help overhaul the school district's food program. And then after that, we were raising between $150,000 and $250,000 a year to do projects, whether it was we overhauled the greenhouse so the kids could come and see how food was grown. We had a plant sale every year. We were putting money into kitchens. We did 200 events a year, educational events with the kids, salad bar tastings, chef tastings, chef demos. We did an Iron Chef competition with the kids. We paid for kids to go to farmers. We paid for farmers to come into the cafeterias. So there was 34 school gardens in the district of 52 schools. So all of that was really about the educational and marketing component, not necessarily about the cooking, but about everything else you needed to do to really change the food system.
Product knowledge is so important. You've answered a lot of the questions I was thinking about. This one's a little bit more putting you on the spot, but if you had to give some advice to other cooks, to other chefs, to other parents, other school districts to get involved and try to replicate some of the programs or partial programs that you've launched here in Boulder, let's say, what would that be? What, baby steps, right? And for certain districts that haven't moved in any direction yet. It's so important that the movement continues, right? And I'm sure the foundation and others that have worked with you over the years are still, becoming the evangelists for this movement. But for the sake of our chat today, are there 1, 2, or 3 podium items that we could really focus on and make a difference quickly?
Yes. So first of all, the Chef Ann Foundation, that's what we do. We launched in 2009, and we are in every single state, 13,000 schools, touching 3.3 million kids. We have a number of big programs that can help school districts start to move, help young cooks who think they want to go into school food, or even chefs that want to make a career change. So we have the Lunchbox, which is a web portal with hundreds and hundreds of school food recipes and all kinds of information to be able to make change. We have the School Food Institute that has 11 online courses, kind of like what you guys do, online courses to teach people about school food, no matter where they are. We have the Salad Bars to Schools project, which you mentioned that we launched with Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign. We are launching a new project around bulk milk to get the little baby cartons out of schools, and we just got a big grant to do that. We have a project called Scale, which is a self-assessment tool. So school districts can take this self-assessment and then get answers to where they are in the continuum so they can start to make change. A big project we have is Get Schools Cooking, and Get Schools Cooking, we take 5 to 7 school districts a year and take them through a 3-year process of actually changing their school district. And the latest project that we just got funding for, we found out for sure we had funding last week, is called Healthy School Food Pathways. And this is happening in California, where we're taking young people through pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs in conjunction with community colleges to get them educated to go into school food, and also a fellowship program to take management level people in school food to take them to director level. So all that's happening, but the one thing that every single person can do, whether they are in culinary or school food or no kids or have kids or were a kid, is really we have to go back to universal meals. We have to have healthy school meals for all. During COVID, that was the case. The USDA dropped it as of July 1, so not all meals are free anymore. 3 states actually instituted, California, Vermont, and Maine. Colorado has it on the ballot for November. I helped with that. So we need to make sure that, first of all, that every single kid in every single school, every single day has food that's free. And secondly, and maybe just as importantly, that it's all healthy and scratch cooked. And we need culinarians to help us do that. We need young culinarians to know that school food is a career option, and it's a wonderful career option in many, many different ways. So that's what we need.
Absolutely brilliant. And it's just so funny. Beautiful response to the question that everyone will ask. We'll make 100% sure that we have several links in the podcast when it goes out to viewers so that they can just click and access a lot of this information. It's so funny because I was literally going to pivot and you already answered it. I was going to pivot to what can we do at home? All the pressure shouldn't be on our school districts, right? As parents, as chef parents, we have an unfair advantage, right? We kind of know. But I could remember years ago when I was running a school in Chicago, we made a big movement. We had about 2,000 students there, so we made a big move to change all of the vending machines to be non-GMO and healthy solutions. And again, it was tough, right? And I could remember the student council, come pouring into my office, thanking us for thinking about them, but also reminding us that while we may be cooking healthy here and you've put snacks available to us that are healthier in nature, but as soon as we go home, that message hasn't gotten to my parents yet or to my grandparents and so on and so forth. So it's really everybody's responsibility is what I'm hearing. And if you think for 1 minute that we're going to believe that you're in retirement, I'd like to see you when you were fully engaged and busy. I mean, nothing of our conversation today reflects any sort of the image of you retiring. So thank you for while we're talking about that, what are you looking forward to when you take the chef coat? You're in Grand Junction, a beautiful part of the country, nicer, milder climate, lots of room for exercise. You mentioned Palisade, Paonia, Hotchkiss, Cedar Ridge. That's where all of our fruit comes from, our tree fruits and such. So are you working on something secret, or are you really relaxing? Are you on a golf course?
Well, no, I'm certainly not on a golf course. So I still work for the foundation. So, the work I do now is with the Chef Ann Foundation, and the next big project, which is going to be announced really, really soon, is going to be a big project in California. But I actually am retired from school districts. I don't have 200 plus employees anymore. So I have a lot more time to work on the foundation, do some other things. But I love to hike. I love to ski. I have a place in Vail. I love to bike. I ride, almost every day.
Oh, great.
If I don't ride, I hike. I'm doing some traveling now that COVID is, I don't know if it's behind us, but it's,
it's over there. Yeah, it's over there. Yeah.
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 I'm vaxxed and double boosted, so I feel like I can go places. And so, yeah.
That's great. That's great. I absolutely love it. Before I let you get out of here, I again, on behalf of Escoffier, I want to thank you for the work. And I'm talking Escoffier, the school, and Auguste Escoffier and his great grandson, Michel, because you're carrying the torch of how important it is for us to connect with our food and understand our food and how to apply, proper techniques to our food. So thank you for that work. Always know that we're an open door for any evangelistic or networking that we can be a part of. I'm not going to let you off the hook this early, but I have a few ideas that I'm going to run by you. But before I let you go today, the name of the podcast is The Ultimate Dish. So in your mind, Chef, what would be the ultimate dish, or what has been the ultimate dish in your life?
Well, I think that it's not that simple. For me, the ultimate dish isn't some chef's wet dream. It's not the fanciest food. It's not when I ate it per se, or when I ate at 3-star restaurants all over Europe. It's the most delicious in-season food that you can have today. So Grand Junction has a great growing climate. I have a huge garden here. And we have numerous farmers markets. So my, perfect dish this week is, lettuce from our garden, basil from our garden, squash from our garden, and tomatoes from the farmers market, and local mozzarella cheese, and just making this beautiful mozzarella, tomato, fresh basil, fresh lettuce, salad, and some grilled squashes from the garden. And so, and it would be very different if you asked me this in February. I'd probably be talking about braised lamb from a local farmer that I braised overnight, So, but today, and it's with beautiful olive oil and great vinegar. And so that's it for today.
I am not surprised at all at that beautiful response. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And Chef, thank you again. Again, our congratulations on an amazing career, and the work continues, and you've got a friend in Escoffier. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been really wonderful.
Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish podcast, brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast, where you'll find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. You can also browse other episodes and subscribe.